Hello. As an antenna installer, you will have to mount some ancillary equipment or antenna near products, antenna near parts. And these are usually in the form of a tower mounted amplifier or TMA. The later generation of TMAs includes this, the DD-TMA, the dual Duplex tower mounted amplifier. It basically has to be mounted very close to the antenna to improve the system performance. But transmit signals are sent up to the antenna through the unit, and coming back through the unit towards the base station, the received signals are amplified. As an installer, you're going to have to mount this on the tower or mast, wall, wherever it's going to be mounted, and you will connect feeder cables to the connections at the bottom of the unit via a short jumper lead. Of course, you'll have to use the usual techniques, torque wrenches to tighten connectors to a specific torque setting, and all the joints are going to have to be weatherproofed and waterproofed using either a cold shrink system or using self-amalgamating tape and electrical insulation tape. In the wideband CDMA system, however, there are more complicated units, and these are known as the Antenna System Controllers, or simply ASC. This is one of the early models, and the later model is here. It has the same two connections at the bottom connected to the base station, and connections at the top which go to the antennas. However, these units also involve microprocessors, and these microprocessors are communicating with the processors inside the radio base station. The antenna cables that you'll be connecting from these connectors to the radio base station actually connect the DC power for these units, and this comes from the radio base station. So it's very important that you do not mix up these connections. There is an A branch and a B branch, and normally it's the A branch that contains the power and the data signalling between the radio base station and the unit. If you should become involved with testing a radio system after it's been installed and put into service, you simply cannot come to the unit to disconnect it or change it by dragging out the cable. That's something like switching off your PC by pulling the plug out of the wall. What you have to do is to disable the unit, to block it in the base station itself, and that's a job done by the radio engineer. The units have to be physically mounted with the antenna connections at the top and the radio base station connections at the bottom. The ASCs also have an extra connection to this unit, and that is from the bottom of the unit itself, and they're done by a short data cable. This unit is an RET, which is a remote electrical tilt unit. And it's basically a remote controlled motor, and this fits on the bottom of a sector antenna. It actually adjusts the antenna itself to control the angle of radiation, the tilt angle, according to data information that's been received from the base station system. Mechanically, the problems with installing these is waterproofing. This has been the major problem. The later units, however, have got a lip on here, and that should also be waterproofing. The units are normally mounted by means of hose clamps which can go around poles horizontally or vertical. They can be mounted directly onto a wall, or they can be mounted onto some sort of a bracket. All the units must be bonded to the station earth system, and this is contained here. At the bottom of each unit you'll find a bolt, and this is the earthing connection point, and that is bonded to the earthing system the same as the antennas. Here we have the top end of a typical antenna system. We have an antenna system controller, and the top connectors are connected via jumper cables to a diversity antenna. Of course, all the connections will be insulated and protected against the weather, just as these are. The next thing we must also connect is the remote electrical tilt unit. The mechanical connection is to the right of centre, and that is the way we position it over the RET socket. Remove the protective cap and insert the mechanics into the RET. Okay, so we just lift the ferrule and rotate it until it grips the tilt unit. The next stage is to connect the control cable to the antenna system controller so that we can actually control the antenna tilt. Remove the protective cap from the control cable connector and fit the control cable. Remember that all of these joints still have to be waterproofed, and also don't forget to remove the plastic cap. You can't leave that dangling in the wind. The other end of the RET control cable is connected to the data output from the ASC. The data cable is connected. All we have to do now is to connect the A and B branches from the ASC through the jumper cables to the feeders and onto the radio base station. Be careful that you don't get them mixed up. You also have to connect the earth connections from the ASC and the antenna, and isolate all the connections, seal them all against the weather.